how to install Oracle's VirtualBox VM hypervisor program on Ubuntu Linux 22.04. Okay, let's get started. My name is Paul, and I am the lead research technician at the How to Linux Research Labs, and today I'm going to show you how to install VirtualBox on Ubuntu 22.04. Okay, and back with the first step. Okay, a couple things before we get started. First, I want to show that this actually is Ubuntu 22.04. Okay, right here, pull out Ubuntu, and this pretty much verifies that we are actually on Ubuntu. Okay, so I'm going to clear on the screen there and go to the applications. And we're going to try to find VirtualBox. It won't be here, but once we're done, then it should show up in our application folder, activities folder here. Applications, activities. Okay, anyway, in the application folder here. Okay, so we have three sections, as you can see. Section 1, no VirtualBox there. Section 2, no VirtualBox here either. In Section 3, not here either. So when I'm done, come back here, and there should be an entry here for VirtualBox. Okay, so I'm going to work in the terminal. Now, a quick little background on VirtualBox. It is Oracle's free and open source offering, and it's an excellent virtualization tool, hypervisor, and it's especially good for desktop operating systems. A lot of people, they prefer to use it over VMware on Linux, which is another virtualization tool. You can use this virtualization software for installing and using another OS within a virtual machine, a VM. And okay, so yeah, so a use case, for example, would be you can install Linux on VirtualBox inside Windows. So you'd have a Windows host with a Linux guest, and vice versa. You can have a Linux host with a Windows guest. And there's also some other There's also some other packages to install. Probably won't get into that in this video, but also keep in mind that you should also install extension pack and guest, and something called the extension pack, and another package called extension pack, and the other one would be a guest edition, or guest edition, I think it was. I know for sure one's an extension pack, the other one I think is a guest extension, or I just call it the guest edition pack. Okay, so yeah, you can make one or the other, Windows or Linux the host and one the guest. And so, you know, one of the reasons to run, you know, an OS in a VM is to test it out without having to install it on another machine or on bare metal in a dual boot. You can make one or the other the host, and then Windows or Linux could be the guest, and you could play around and experiment with that guest operating system without actually having to go through the process and the pain sometimes of setting up whether it's a single drive or a dual drive setup, and you have a dual boot setup, and you have to figure out how to get your bootloaders to work to see each operating system. That could be challenging. So, and of course, you know, in the cloud, running something in the cloud is okay for kicking the tires, or running it from a live desktop, from a USB or DVD. And this is just another option for running an operating system without actually having to install it on your bare metal. Okay, so there's three different ways. I'm gonna pick one of them today, and we're gonna go with that one, and probably make some other videos later for the other two methods. Method one, which would be not what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do method 3 actually. Method 1 would be to actually install VirtualBox from the Ubuntu repository. So I'm not going to do that. I think it'd probably be a little bit older, but it's certainly older than going and downloading a deb file from the VirtualBox website or using the VirtualBox repo. So we're going to skip that, method 1. Method 2, like I mentioned, you can go to the VirtualBox website and you can download their deb file, and we can install VirtualBox from a deb file. You know, it's pretty much more graphical, I think, so it's a little bit easier. I'm going to go with method 3 today, and we're going to install VirtualBox using Oracle's repository, and this is a command line method. So it might seem complicated, but it really isn't. But it does offer advantages over the previous 2 methods. You'll get the latest version of VirtualBox, and it will be automatically updated with future releases, since you've already added the repo to the sources list. If you do it with the Ubuntu repos, yeah, it'll probably update, but it'll be an older version that you're going to get, and it won't really update until the Ubuntu devs put the new version of VirtualBox in their repos. Whereas once using the command line method for using the VirtualBox Oracle's repos, once there's a new version, then you'll get it right away. So, and then of course using the graphical the method of using the deb file, you'll probably get a current version, but it won't update for you. Okay, so we're going to go with method 3. And we're going to install VirtualBox using Oracle's repo. Okay. A few more lines here. I'm going to read to you. To install VirtualBox using the command line, we need to add the Oracle VirtualBox's repo to our list of repositories, which is what we're going to do. And that's going to consist of a couple steps. We're going to add a GPG key, and then we're going to install the repo URL. We're going to update the apt cache. Then we're going to use apt to actually install a VirtualBox. Okay, so you know when new versions are released, it'll be updated along with our system updates. Okay, so we're going to do the first step now, and the first step will be to add the key for the repo, and we can download and add the key with one command in the terminal with the wget utility. So you're going to have this utility installed. If you don't, it's a simple apt install command. So you're going to have to have this utility to download from the terminal. Okay, so you can see on mine it's clear. I mean, it's actually installed and ready to use. Okay, so back with the command to add the key. Okay, here's the command to add the key. Okay, we're going to use the wget command line utility for downloading stuff from the internet, and we're going to pass it this URL, and it's going to pipe that into a sudo session, and it's going to add the key. Okay, pretty simple. So once that's keyed in, enter on that and wait for the output. Yeah, it's usually pretty quick. It just adds the key, and you can read the output here real quick. No errors, everything's okay. So the key's been added, and that is that's the first step. Okay. Okay. So the second step will be actually adding the Oracle VirtualBox repo to our list of repositories using the next command. Okay, so this command, once you key this in, you can go ahead and enter on that. Now, my take on this is that we're in the sudo session, and we're going to use this add apt repository command, and we're going to pass this URL. I'm not going to break every little thing down here. I'm not really quite sure exactly what sometimes it's self-explanatory, but I don't really need to break it down. Essentially, basically we're going to pass the URL in from right to left here into this command here, and it's going to take this URL and add it to the APT. It's going to add it to our sources list, and then once we do that, we can update the APT cache so APT will become aware of it, because at this point it won't actually know about it until we actually do some more commands. So it'll add the repo to the list, but APT won't know that it's there until we update the APT cache. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is actually add the repo URL to our list, our sources list. Okay, so once you've got that keyed in, enter on that and wait for it to add that that repository URL. Okay, enter to continue. Okay, always make sure you're reading the output, so if it seems to get stuck, it might actually require you to actually interact and do a keystroke. Okay, so it looks good to here, and we're going to add the repo, press enter to continue. Okay, good. So I'm going to press enter on that, and you can read the output. It goes by kind of quick, but you get the idea of what's going on. And once it's done, I'll scroll back up, and we'll actually try to find that repo URL that was just added, which was not there before I started this process. So back in a minute, and we'll try to spot that newly added repo. Okay, it added the repo URL with no errors, some warnings, nothing to worry about here. So I'll scroll up really quick, and I have a lot here. So we're going to try to key in on VirtualBox stuff. Okay, here we go, right here. Now I didn't show you before if it was here or not, but trust me, it was not here. So it is here now. It's been added, and I think they're pretty much going to be clustered, so there probably won't be any other VirtualBox entries down here, I don't think. They're usually kind of clustered together. Okay, I don't really see anything there. A quick little scan there. Then there's some warnings down here, but it's more information than really a warning. Just telling you where the key is stored, some of the key information. And then, of course, you can see VirtualBox here, and I have some other repos here, but the one that I want to highlight is the VirtualBox here. Okay, so we've added the repo. So, and there was no errors, so we can clear on that and on to the next step. Okay, back. Okay, so yeah, now that we've added the correct repository, we're going to refresh the list of packages available through these repos, and we're going to install VirtualBox. So essentially, we're going to let APT know through this command here, on this expression here, on this side of the logical AND operator, that to go ahead and update your cache, and then this will make it aware that that repo exists. And then we have another command here, chained. Normally you can just do update and then do this separately, but we're going to chain them together, so it can get a 2-for-1 here. So this will update it, let it know that it exists. It'll let APT know that that VirtualBox repo URL exists, and then it's going to go ahead and it's going to use APT to go ahead and install VirtualBox. So it looks a little complicated, but it's okay. You don't have to split them up into different do one command here and then do the other one on the next line. You can just have one line and chain it together with the logical AND operator, and then it'll go from, once this evaluates, then this will evaluate here. You can also look up how the logical AND operator does work as far as what gets evaluated, what expressions get evaluated, but that's a different lesson. So once it updates, it's going to go ahead and install. Okay, so once we have this keyed in, and we give the once over, let's go ahead and enter on that. Now it's becoming aware that that VirtualBox repo URL actually is usable now. It could pull from here. Okay. As you can see, we're down. You could look at the output here. We don't need. Let's see. We saw that before. So essentially, at this point, it already knows about it, and there's no confirmation that it actually knows about it, except that it's going to try to install from it. So that'll be your verification, essentially. Okay. So what's it saying here? My system actually might be doing other updates as well, on top of also installing VirtualBox as well. So there's other things that probably were going to be here. So I didn't do an APT update upgrade before I started the video. So there might be other things that were in the pipeline already, essentially. But as long as we have VirtualBox here, now that wouldn't be here normally if we didn't have, if we weren't actually installing it with that command up here. So just kind of, ignore some of the other packages here, and let's just focus on VirtualBox here. Okay, so it's going to install some other packages as well as a VirtualBox here. So we're okay here. So we're going to key in the Y for yes, enter on that, and it's going to install whatever core package upgrades that were in the pipeline, and it'll also install VirtualBox as well. And then once that's done, we can go ahead and verify the installation for VirtualBox. So everything's progressing here, and back when it's done. Okay, success. Everything seems to have gone on without any faults or errors. Okay, so we're done with the terminal for the moment. We'll come back and we'll see if I can show you the command to launch VirtualBox from the terminal. But for the moment, we're going to minimize that. Go back to the application folder, pop that open. It'll probably be in the last section, so it's not here in the first section. Second section doesn't have VirtualBox either, right? Nope. It should be here. And there it is right there. And then single click it for me, and it'll open it here. Okay, and then you could look up documentation on their website. You could Google. You could use AI to look up instructions on how to actually create, provision and whatnot, a virtual machine. And also keep in mind that you're also probably going to have to install something called the extension pack and guest editions. Okay. Okay, so that was how to install VirtualBox and open it by a GUI. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and X that out. And then I do believe the command to launch a VirtualBox via the command line interface, the CLI, in the terminal is VBox. Been a while since I've done this. Okay, I'm back with that proper command to launch it. Okay, so it's been a while since I've used VirtualBox in the terminal, but it seems like you can't actually launch the GUI program like you can with some other programs from within the terminal. I just went over some of the documentation, and it seemed like that's not possible. Okay, so I'll touch on a couple more things, but first, so it's actually VBox managed, not VBox, to get the version. So that's pretty much where you want to be, 7. Now, I went over some of the usage of the VBox command, and none of them actually launched the GUI that we got from the application. So it seems like everything has to be created in the terminal as far as, creating the VM. So a couple of main ones to keep in mind is create VM here, and then there's some usage. So you're going to have to do everything in the terminal here, which could be a little bit more challenging. Obviously, I would use the terminal only for launching the GUI program in this case. But if you actually want to, create it in the most, the more easier way, I guess, would be to launch the GUI. It's probably easier to do something this. I think it would be kind of complicated I mean, I don't know. It's up to you if you want to challenge yourself. But keep in mind that launching a VirtualBox from the terminal, it doesn't work. You're going to have to actually create the VM with terminal commands. So a VBox manage create VM is one, and then once you've actually created it, then another one would be to go ahead and actually start it this way. So create and start it in the terminal. So I've not done that before. I've always, whatever few VMs I've done with VirtualBox has always been through their GUI program. But keep in mind that you could do it either way. Okay, so that was how to install. That was how to install a VirtualBox. I think it was 7 on Ubuntu Linux 22.04. So we quickly a little recap. Yeah. So I show you how to add the key, add the repo, update the apt cache, and use apt to install VirtualBox, and how to install it via your this is not so much this is not your file manager, it's just your application folder essentially. How to launch it that way there, which is the way I would probably recommend for most users. How to launch it and how to create and start and manage your VMs that way. Of course, in the terminal, we verified the installation, the version here, 7, and a couple of commands, the create VM and the start VM commands, so you can create and start it. And of course, like I said before, if you can just go over their documentation on their website, find tutorials, other groups, other forums, YouTube videos, Google, or ask the AIs to how to do it in the terminal here, and even how to even how to do things in the GUI, because that could be hard too if you don't know what you're doing. So if you need to get past anything, you can just use those resources to get help for yourself. And again, don't forget the extension pack and the guest editions. They don't come with the installation. There's detailed steps on how to actually install that software as well to give your VM extended capabilities, or even maybe just to make it work at all. I'm not sure, but certainly the extension pack and the guest editions are separate softwares that you should actually include with your VirtualBox endeavors. Okay, so that was how to install VirtualBox on Ubuntu 22.04, Ubuntu Linux 22.04. Okay, and I am Paul, and I am the lead research technician at the How to Linux Research Labs. I thank you for subscribing and watching my channel, and I look forward to your comments and your feedback. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.